everybody. I hope you guys are having a great quarantine. So, a lot of things came up. You have your final performance task, and I want to let you know what you're doing. So, we've done this before where you have to analyze the lines of dialogue. And if you're having any trouble with that, that's what we're going to go over right now. So I'm going to show you. We also have to talk about the Lion King assignment. A lot of you handed that in today. That was fantastic. You basically just had to make a video of you performing one of the scenes out of that play. And also, the other thing is we had a meeting with Miss DeVito today. A lot of the kids came on. It was great to see. And I wanted to just give you an update. Your prom will be June 23rd. Not prom, your graduation. Prom is canceled, unfortunately. I'm just going to get all the things I sent out. So you have graduation is June 23rd. The time is still to be arranged. It will be a virtual graduation. Meaning, let me just see. I want to read you exactly what I updated everybody with the information for graduation. Because if you weren't on that meeting, it would be great for you to be there. Hello. All right, so let's see. I want to give you all of the details. Okay. If you paid for graduation and prom, you will be refunded, and Ms. DeVito will let you know on the seniors activity page. So definitely check out the senior activity page so you can keep up to date. That's also on Google Classroom. If you don't know what the code is for Google Classroom, you could go back onto my page and look under class codes, just scroll down a bit. So you can find all the codes for pretty much all of the classes that you need. If you received an award because you did such hard work and fantastic job throughout the year, some of the politicians will actually send you it in the mail. The other awards will be sent to the school. I don't know who will get it in the mail or who will get it in the school, but if you think you're due for an award, you might want to check your mail and be careful you don't bend any of those important papers. Those are really great to use for college, jobs. You could send them in with your resume, you scan them, and that's part of the amazing things that you have done to show that when you want to be a part of an organization or a part of a job or a part of a great college or high school, you want to get into these fantastic groups, you want to use those recommendation letters, those certifications you earn. If you won a contest, definitely include that as well. That helps you show how awesome of a job you're doing. So also really important, for the virtual graduation, your picture cannot be posted unless you sign the consent. So you need to go to the senior activities page and sign the consent for the pictures. If you have not done that, do so, because this is your graduation and you need to make it as cool as it can be by signing that consent so we can see your picture of who's graduating, because you guys did an amazing job and look at what you went through with the quarantine. If you make it to graduation, you need to have your picture posted. So definitely get there, sign the consent, or you won't be a part of the graduation. Your face won't be there. No names will be posted. So you don't have to worry about that. It'll just be your face, your beautiful face. So post it, sign that consent. Also, all right, so for the Lion King, I wanted to do a read aloud if you couldn't do the video, which I hope most of you can do the video. If you can't, do an audio of it, read it out loud. So we know you have this public speaking down pat, and try to be as creative. Dr. Gill said you could also do a PowerPoint. So there are modifications if you can't do the video. I know some of you don't like to be on TV. Your families don't want to take part in being on TV, though maybe they're a little embarrassed, or they just don't want to be on the camera. So that's fine. Do a slideshow or do a read aloud where you don't have to show your face, but read. Maybe you could get one of your family members to read with you and really show the feeling behind it. Google Slides is totally fine. Okay, that's not a problem. So the next thing that you have to do is read lines of dialogue. And then you're going to say, like, it's an inference. So you read them and kind of tell what's going on in the background. What isn't being said, but you understand that, right? So if I say to you, I'm wearing gloves and a hat and a scarf, you can assume that it's a certain type of weather. You could assume that it's cold out. You could assume that it's maybe snowing, right? But I never told you that. So when you read the lines of dialogue, it's the same thing. So we read Charles, if you remember, about the little boy in kindergarten who told his mother that, well, it wasn't Charles. It was Laurie who told his parents about this bad kid, Charles, right? And we learn a lot about what Laurie was doing through his actions, right? And he would talk about this bad boy, Charles. So remember he said, I'm going to just read a couple of lines of dialogue. So dialogue is a conversation between two people or more. A monologue is a conversation between one person. You might read Hamlet and see Hamlet says things as a soliloquy, which is a monologue. He's talking by himself. A soliloquy, though, is letting the audience know his thoughts and feelings. So he'll talk to himself, but so that the audience knows what he's thinking, like when he does his famous presentation of to be or not to be. That is the question, right? If you read Hamlet, that's in there. That's where it came from. So whether you're reading a monologue, a soliloquy, or a dialogue, you're going to learn about the characters. And a lot of the stuff they won't even say, but you'll be able to figure out. So let's take a couple of lines and let's read. What? I said, and my husband added wearily. You mean Charles? Charles, Laurie said. He gave the crayons around and he picked up the books afterward, and the teacher said he was her helper. What happened? I asked incredulously. He was her helper. That's all, Laurie said, and shrugged. Can this be true about Charles? I asked my husband that night. Can something like this happen? Wait and see, my husband said cynically. When you've got a Charles to deal with, this may mean he's only plotting. He seemed to be wrong. For over a week, Charles was the teacher's helper. Each day, he handed things out and he picked things up. No one had to stay after school. The PTA meeting's next week again, I told my husband one evening. I'm going to find Charles's mother there. Ask her what happened to Charles, my husband said. I'd like to know. I'd like to know myself, I said. So I think those last two lines we could have just read, because this is where the parents, they want to meet Charles's mother. Right? But if you remember the ending of the story, this is why it becomes so funny, right? Because if you remember what happens at the end of the story, who is Charles, right? We learn that Charles is really Laurie, and the parents don't know that. And you know they don't know that because right here in this dialogue, they're looking to meet this parent. So we learn that the parents want to meet Charles's mother. Why? Why do they want to meet Charles's mother? Well, we make some assumptions here, right? We're going to analyze these lines of dialogue and make some assumptions. We're going to make some inferences. So we now know that how is Charles behaving? He got better all of a sudden. Do the parents believe that this boy Charles is going to continue to be better? No, they're questioning it. They're cynical. We're just looking and we're discussing, right? You're going to have this discussion about the lines you read. It doesn't matter what lines you choose. You could analyze anything. Some are better than others, right? So when we say they want to meet the mother, that's leading up to something, right? The mother calls the woman haggard. She was looking for a haggard woman. Remember, we talked about those lines of dialogue. And who's really the haggard person? It's her. She doesn't know that. So this leads to a really funny ending where it's her son and she's the haggard mother that she's been kind of making fun of, right? So I also want to read another line of dialogue about the mother, because remember, the first meeting she says she's going to go to, right? Let's see. She says she's going to go to the meeting, but she can't, right? Monday night was the first parent-teachers meeting, and only the fact that the baby had a cold kept me from going. I wanted passionately to meet Charles's mother. On Tuesday, Laurie remarked suddenly, our teacher had a friend come to school to see her today. Charles' mother, my husband and I asked simultaneously. So now here's Lori talking about, hi, everybody coming on. Lori's mother is talking about that she can't make it to the first PTA meeting. We realize she has an infant. When you have an infant, does that mother have time to pay attention to her son as much, who is going to school and a little bit more independent? Well, when I analyze these lines of dialogue, I could already see that she doesn't have a lot of time for him anymore. She couldn't make it to that meeting because the baby got sick, right? And that's life. That's what happens. And we don't know where the father is. Maybe he's working, or maybe he just isn't a dad who's able to take care of an infant, right? So there's all these different ways you could analyze it. And it's going to be based on your experiences. Maybe your father is a great caregiver and takes care of you, and those are your experiences. So maybe you think he's at work and that's why he can't. Or maybe your father doesn't take care of the babies and your mother does. So you know that's your experience. That might be how you infer what's happening here. But you look at the lines of dialogue to say, well, she wants to know, but not that much, because she didn't even make it to the meeting because the baby had a cold. Like, a cold, isn't that a little no big deal? So based on your experiences, you're going to analyze these dialogues. You're all going to have different opinions on them. It might be similar, but you all have different things to say. And then the best lines to analyze, to me, was my favorite, was the ending, right? The mother and the teacher finally meet, and it's the very last lines of the story. And she says, I've been so, well, remember, even before this, right? I'm going to even start a little bit before. After the meeting, I identified and sought out Lori's kindergarten teacher. She had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of chocolate cake. I had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of marshmallow cake. We maneuvered up to one another cautiously and smiled. So she's pointing out the scene of what's happening. And within the scene, we see they're a lot alike. They both have tea and they both have cake. And they're both cautiously going up to each other. Now, I don't know why the mother would be cautious to approach the teacher, but the teacher might be cautious because she knows that Lori's a problem in her class, right? So she approaches and she says, I've been so anxious to meet you, I said. I'm Lori's mother. We're all so interested in Lori, she said. That's the teacher. Well, he certainly likes kindergarten, I said. He talks about it all the time. We had a little trouble adjusting the first week or so, she said primly, but now he's a fine little helper, with occasional lapses, of course. Lori usually adjusts very quickly, I said. I suppose this time it's Charles's influence. So is the mother taking responsibility for Lori's actions? No, who is she blaming? She's blaming Charles, right? So here you also could analyze those lines of dialogue. The mother's not taking responsibility for her son's actions. She's blaming another boy in the class. And then what do we hear? The teacher says, Charles? Yes, I said, laughing. You must have your hands full with that in that kindergarten with Charles. Charles, she said. We don't have any Charles in kindergarten. So now we get to analyze and wonder, does this mother even know that her son was Charles? Her son was doing these bad things because she's neglected his bad behavior in the house. Remember, he was rude. He called his father dumb, right? Look up, look down, gee, you're dumb. So remember, if we analyze these lines, he already showed the rude behavior. And not once did she ever suspect that Charles was fake. Now, there is a scene where I kind of get that maybe they did know, but they didn't accept it. They didn't really believe it, right? The father makes a comment. He starts to ask him, what does he look like? What does this Charles look like? And he just lets it go. Let's see if I could find that. I'm sure you guys remember because this was such a fun story to read. But I don't know where it is right now. But I will say the father does ask him to describe Charles, and Lori does. He describes Charles, but they just let it go. You know, a lot of the time people don't want to take responsibility, right? So when you read this, I want you to think about the lines of dialogue. Now, you could do this story. You could do any of the stories we did throughout the year. You could do The Lion King. The Lion King is great, right? You have Simba and Mustafa and the relationship between the uncle and Simba. You might have been able to predict that the uncle was up to no good, right? By reading the lines of dialogue. So choose a story you like that you could really analyze. Charles is a great story, but we already used it. But since it's remote learning, we're not going to be so strict on what story you use. So if you wanted to use a previous story that we read in another class, that's totally fine. As long as you find lines of dialogue and you can analyze them and really infer. It has to be a 5-paragraph essay. And Dr. Gill put out the information. She laid out what each paragraph has to say. So really go through it carefully. If you need help, I could definitely go over anything you don't understand. Dr. Gill and I and Mr. Flinsky are always here for you. So reach out to us. You can email us on Google Classroom. You can text us on Reminds app. I always get back to you guys whenever you reach out, and it doesn't matter what time. If I'm free, I respond. Sometimes I'm working and I can't respond because you know me, this isn't the only thing I do. You are getting closer to graduation. So I do want to say some exciting news. I probably should have said this at the beginning, but with the quarantine, the program Donors Choose set out a contest to win $1,000. And this was the program I won all those books for in the beginning of the year. But that was a grant I wrote with intentions, right? I had intentions for my ESL students with this last grant that I wrote, and I got all those books, right, for our class. This time, it was just for quarantine. So because you guys are seniors, I try to think, what could I get you? So I went and bought a whole bunch of little presents, and I'm going to have a day when quarantine is all over to invite all of you guys up to school to maybe come, and it'll be like a graduation farewell where you could just pick out something you want off of the table I'll set up with all the stuff I got. It was so exciting to go shopping for you. Things I think you would love or need. Some are books, some are journals, some are fun things that you could take home with you and just play and keep yourselves a little busy. So I'll let you know when that happens. But I want you to know, guys, I miss you. If you need help, just reach out. I will definitely go live or do Google Meet to help you understand whatever you need. So definitely hang in there. Learn how to grow. Listen, I became a farmer. I redid my real estate license. I read a lot. I got another job. I'm keeping myself busy. Keep yourself busy. Go on YouTube. Learn anything. My daughter's learning how to play guitar. My sons are playing their video games. There's so many things for you to do. Go out. Out here, the basketball nets are still up. So I took my son over here and we played basketball, but nobody's in the park over here. You know, if you're around people, put a mask on. Otherwise, breathe in the fresh air. It's good for you. Take in some sun. You need that. And reach out to me whenever you want, guys. Have a great day. I will see you later. Bye.